In this video, we're going to have a look at the addition and subtraction of negative fractions. To be able to add and subtract negative fractions, we combine the skills of adding and subtracting fractions and adding and subtracting integers. To be able to add and subtract fractions, we first make equivalent fractions with common denominators, and then we simply add and subtract the numerators. For example, if we had a over x plus or minus b over x with common denominators, we simply add or subtract the numerators. When we add a positive integer, the result gets larger or moves to the right on a number line. So adding a positive integer, we move to the right. When we add a negative integer, the result gets smaller or moves to the left on a number line. So when we add a negative integer, we move to the left. Similarly, when we subtract a positive integer, the result gets smaller, or we move to the left on a number line. That is, we subtract a positive, we move to the left, and then the opposite occurs when we subtract a negative integer, the result gets larger, or we move to the right on a number line. That is, when we subtract a negative, we move to the right. Let's combine these skills with our three examples. Negative 3/4 plus 2/5. First, we need to have a common denominator. The lowest common denominator is 20. Equivalent fractions, negative 3/4 is negative 15/20 plus 2/5 is 8/20. Now imagine you're on a number line at negative 15/20 or simply negative 15, and we're adding a positive, so we're going to move to the right on a number line. Negative 15 to the right 8 places will end up at negative 7/20. Second example, negative 2/3 plus negative 3/4. Again, they need common denominators. The lowest common denominator is 12. Negative 2/3 equivalent is negative 8/12. And we're adding negative 9/12. Now when we add a negative, the number gets smaller. That is, we move to the left on a number line. Imagine you're at negative 8 and you move 9 places to the left. You'll end up at negative 17/12. You could leave the answer as an improper fraction or convert it to a mixed number. You can see here that adding a negative is the same as subtracting, that they both are positive, that they both move to the left on a number line. So this sum would be the same as negative 2/3 take away 3/4. Our last example involves mixed numbers, and I'm going to show you two ways to do it. Firstly, I'm going to leave the whole numbers and make the equivalent fractions, the fraction part just equivalents. So we'll rewrite this as negative 3 4/10 take away negative 1 5/10. The lowest common denominator of the fraction part being tenths here. Now, when we subtract a negative, it's the same as adding. That is, it moves to the right on a number line. So I'm just going to rewrite it plus. Now this one I chose is particularly tricky. Let's look at how we could break this sum down. We could have negative 3 take away 4/10, or adding negative 4/10, plus 1 plus 5/10. Now can you see what's going to happen here? Let's do the whole sections first. We've got negative 3 plus 1, which will be negative 2. And we have negative 4/10 plus 5/10, which will be plus 1/10. Negative 2 plus 1/10 is negative 1 9/10. Now there was a number of steps involved here. The second option is to convert both to improper fractions. So negative 3 2/5 is negative 17/5. Take away negative 3 on 2. We know subtracting a negative is the same as positive. Converting to improper fractions, we'd have negative 34 tenths plus 15 tenths equals negative 19 tenths, which then can convert to a mixed number as we had earlier. I think that when working with mixed numbers, it is easier and less chance of error if you convert to improper fractions, but there will be cases where you don't do that. And that is a summary of adding and subtracting negative fractions.